This is everything you need to know about a new study that found something genuinely surprising about your kitchen, that the simple act of cooking a meal from scratch might be one of the most overlooked tools we have for protecting the aging brain. If you've ever felt like cooking was just a chore standing between you and dinner, this research is about to change how you think about that time you spend at the stove. Let's start with where this research actually comes from. Researchers followed 10,978 older adults in Japan over 6 years to see who developed dementia requiring long-term care. This wasn't a small pilot study or a handful of case reports. This is a large-scale, long-term data set drawn from the Japan Gerontological Evaluation Study, tracking men and women aged 65 and older over a substantial period of time. The findings were published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health, a peer-reviewed publication, not a wellness blog making unsupported claims. So what did they actually find? Those who cooked at home at least once a week had a 23 to 27% lower risk of dementia compared to those who rarely or never cooked, with the effect breaking down to a 23% lower risk in men and a 27% lower risk in women specifically. That alone would be a meaningful finding. A once-a-week habit, something most people could realistically fit into their lives, even in their later years, associated with roughly a quarter reduction in dementia risk. But the researchers didn't stop there. Here's where the story gets genuinely fascinating. When the researchers broke the data down further by cooking skill level, they found something unexpected. For people with limited or few cooking skills specifically, meaning people who weren't confident or experienced cooks to begin with, the risk reduction jumped dramatically higher to somewhere between 67 and 70%. Read that again. Novice cooks, the people who found cooking difficult and unfamiliar, saw nearly triple the protective benefit compared to the overall study population. Why would that be? The researchers offered an explanation that actually makes a lot of intuitive sense once you sit with it. Their theory is that the mental demand of learning something new or doing something you find genuinely difficult may be more protective for the brain than repeating a task you've already mastered. In other words, it's not just about cooking itself, it's about the cognitive stretch involved when a task challenges you rather than running on autopilot. For an experienced home cook, the fifth time making a familiar stir-fry might not demand much new brain activity at all. But for someone who has never learned to cook, figuring out timing, technique, and coordination for the first time is a genuine cognitive workout. This actually lines up with what researchers describe as the mechanism behind the whole effect. Cooking involves a cognitively complex series of tasks with multiple steps, including planning what to make, acquiring the right ingredients, preparing and combining them correctly, and serving the final result. That's not one simple action. That's a chain of interconnected mental tasks requiring memory, sequencing, attention, and problem solving all at once, executed in real time, often under some pressure not to burn dinner. Now, I want to be honest with you about what this study can and cannot tell us, because that matters. This is an observational study, which means it shows an association between cooking and lower dementia risk, not direct proof that cooking causes that risk reduction. People who cook regularly may also tend to eat healthier food, stay more physically active, or maintain stronger social connections, any of which could independently lower dementia risk on their own. That said, the researchers didn't ignore this problem. They specifically controlled for factors including diet quality and physical activity level, and even after adjusting for those variables, the link between cooking frequency and lower dementia risk remained strong. That doesn't prove causation, but it does mean the effect isn't simply explained away by the most obvious confounding factors. There's also broader context worth understanding here. The 2020 Lancet Commission report identified that around 40% of dementia cases could potentially be prevented by changing lifestyle factors like diet and physical activity. Cooking sits right at the intersection of both of those categories. It shapes what you eat, and it's itself a form of physical and cognitive activity, which may be exactly why this particular habit showed up as such a strong signal in the data. So what should you actually do with this information? If you already cook regularly, this is one more reason to keep doing it, and maybe even push yourself toward a slightly more complicated recipe now and then, rather than always reaching for the same 3 meals you have memorized. If you're someone who has relied heavily on takeout, delivery, or prepared meals, and especially if you're not particularly confident in the kitchen, this research suggests you may actually have the most to gain by starting now. The goal isn't perfection. Once a week was enough to show a measurable association in this study. Pick one night, choose something slightly outside your comfort zone. Peel, chop, season, and cook it yourself. According to this research, you might be doing more for your brain in that hour than you ever realized. If this gave you a real reason to actually cook tonight instead of ordering in, hit that like button and subscribe, because I'll keep bringing you the research behind the everyday habits that actually matter for your health. There's always more happening in your kitchen than you realize, so stick around for the next one.